Hello and welcome to this webinar on protecting your business's Microsoft 365 data with Synology Active Backup for Business and Active Backup for Office 365. My name's James and I'm a business development analyst on the Synology UK team. And there's a couple of things that we're going to go and have a look at today. So we'll start off with why we need a cloud backup solution. We'll then look at what Synology has to offer, so the Synology Active Backup Suite. And then we'll also have a look at how we can spec out and build and then utilize an effective backup solution with Synology. So yeah, as mentioned, let's actually start right at the beginning and take a look at why we need to back up our cloud data. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the past that, or recently, the NHS ransomware attack back in 2017, which affected hundreds of hospitals, across the UK. And then slightly more recently, we've had some big cyber attacks over in the US. And this has gone as far as the very top of the White House, who has pledged to investigate some of these cyber attacks and how to mitigate them in the future. Now, I've mentioned the ransomware attacks, but there's a couple of other potential issues to consider as well. So first off, we have accidental deletion. So cloud providers will often hold your data for 30 days. But if you've deleted something or you've lost something and not realized that it's lost or deleted until outside that 30-day window, well, that data is then lost for good. We've then also got those ransomware attacks that I've just mentioned, and of course these are becoming more prevalent as we move forward into an ever more greatly digital future. And then also we've got retention regulations. So I know that for certain education organisations, they have to hold your data or students' data for 3 or 5 years after that student has left. Now, whilst cloud providers will actually offer that solution, they will charge for it, and obviously that can add up very quickly. Now, besides all this, actually Microsoft themselves say in their Microsoft Services Agreement that obviously we strongly advise to make regular backup copies of your content, and Microsoft can't be held responsible for your content or the material others upload, store and share using our services. Now, this is because Office 365 is built on a high availability setup, so it means that you've got little or no downtime. However, this is of course not a backup. So similar to how a RAID is not a backup of your data, you need to keep a backup separately from your data. So how can Synology help with backing up your cloud data? Now, we've got an ever maturing suite of backup softwares. So we have Active Backup for Business, which covers your servers, virtual machines and workstations. We've then also got 2 cloud backup solutions in Active Backup for Microsoft Office 365 and Active Backup for Google Workspace as well. Now, I've covered Active Backup for Business in a previous webinar, so if you'd like to learn more about that, please go and see that. Today we'll focus in the Office 365 backup. It does work in a very similar manner to Google Workspace, so that can also, yeah, here we'll focus on Microsoft's instead. So yeah, before we actually get into how we'd use that, let's go over some of the other solutions first. So we quite often get asked what is the limit of our devices. Well, actually, quite often the response is a lot more than you require. So only the other week I was asked if an SA3600 could handle 3,000 Microsoft accounts that they had needing to be backed up, and well, yeah. We have this case study here. So this is from Tampere Vocational College, who are using an SA3600 to back up their Microsoft environment. Now, on their Microsoft environment, they have 18,000 students, 1,000 staff members, and over 60,000 email accounts all being backed up to the same unit. Now, for their situation, they were looking to have a system that has increased flexibility with all the remote work and remote learning that has been becoming ever more necessary over these past year. They've also looked at the retention obligations, so they have to have that data stored for the correct length of time. And then, of course, because cloud is not a backup, they needed to fill in the gaps in their data retention policy with an on-site system. So they chose an SA3600 from Synology, and now this allows them to satisfy those retention goals and also recover from any accidental deletion. Allows them to reduce their IT effort with a centralised system and obviously a domain integration, and also allows them to save money on fees due to Synology Active Backup being completely license free. So actually, yeah, what are the full limits of a backup solution? Well, as I've just shown, Tampere are using a Synology solution with over 60,000 accounts, but we know actually somewhere in the world we have a client who is actually backing up over 200,000 accounts to their Synology NAS. So yeah, there's a very, very large system. Very large amount of data can be handled by one unit. And then I guess the next thing to sort of think about is obviously how much all is that going to cost? Well, I've done a bit of analysis here. So we have our Synology system on the left, and on the right we have one of our cloud competitors. This is just, we've just taken over a year on that same 60,000 accounts with Tampere. Now, for the Synology solution, they're going to be looking at about £10,000, but for the our cloud competitor, you're actually looking at just over £1 million a year to back up that amount of data. Now, that actually took me by surprise, so just in case it has for you as well, I'm not making it up. There's a screenshot of their website here showing that it's over £1 million. So yeah, now we've taken a look at why you need a cloud backup solution and also what Synology can offer. Let's actually take a look at how we can build an effective backup solution. So there's a couple of things to think about when actually speccing out a unit. So that is number one, the amount of data that's actually being backed up. So that's not only the actual physical amount of data that needs to be backed up, but more importantly, the actual number of accounts that needs backing up. We've discovered that with Office 365, the amount of data is a lot less than you actually kind of realize. So the big number here to think about is the number of accounts. Another kind of thing to think about is the amount of data that gets changed daily. So how much data actually gets modified. Now, this can have quite a big effect, as it means that every subsequent backup after the first one becomes bigger should your daily change data rate be higher. And then we've also got to think about the retention requirements, so how long we need to keep our backups for. And then lastly, we'll have a look at any extra requirements that we need from our system. For example here, how much storage you're going to have extra in 3 years' time if you're going through expansion, and other such requirements as well. So we've got a bit of a demo, or we've got a bit of an example here. So internally in Synology UK, we've got an account that needs backing up, and we have 50 users on that account, all with data that needs being backed up. Now, this covers about 600 gigabytes of data at the moment, and of course that's going to grow over time. And it changes about 5% daily, so we need to take that into consideration as well. Now, on the retention, we're actually going to do a daily backup, so we'll keep doing a backup once every day, and we'll just, for ease, we'll keep the maximum number of versions possible, so 1024. Now, on the extra requirements, we're actually going to use the unit for some virtualization. So we'll be running a couple of virtual machines on it. And of course, don't tell Microsoft, but we'll be using a Mail Plus server on there as well. So we want it to be slightly overspec'd from what we would normally consider. just to help run to fulfill the requirements of these extra bits and pieces. So when we're taking a look at the actual units that we might want to use, obviously we have our ever popular DS920 Plus, which can back up to 50 users. Now this is going to be slightly too small for us because of those virtualization requirements that we had. But of course, if we didn't have those, then this would be a great unit to go for. We've then got a DS1621 Plus. Now this can do up to 200 users. But yeah, again, we've got the virtualization to kind of think about, and the virtual machines we'll be running are quite intensive. So I think we'll step up to the next level. So we've got a DS3617XS Mark II. Now this is going to give us quite a good deal of headroom, with over 500, or yeah, with up to 500 users being able to be backed up to it, and will also give us that power for our virtualization needs. Now, of course, if we wanted to go further, we could always stretch to an RS3621XS Plus, which is a hugely popular unit at the moment. But of course, that might be a little bit pushing the budget for our setup. So yeah, now we've chosen what unit we're going to go with. I'm now going to show how we can actually set up a backup task of your data to the Synology. Now, what we need to do first is we need to actually enable Azure to allow the Synology to do the backup. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and on Windows, we're going to open up PowerShell, and we're going to change the execution policy. So we'll just put that in here. We'll go to remote signed. And then what I want to do is, once we've got this in, yep, we do want to run it. We're now going to change into our downloads folder so we can run the app generator program that we've previously installed off of the Synology website. And yes, we do want to run. Yes, we do trust this repository. And now this is going to run our app generator for our Azure app. And it's going to ask us to put in a password so we can generate a certificate. So I'll just put a password in here now. Now we can sign into our Microsoft Azure or Office 365 account. So here we'll just sign in quickly and put the password in. And now this is going to create our tenant ID, our application ID, and also generate a certificate as well. So what we can do now is we obviously want to make sure we've got our IDs stored. So we'll open up a quick notepad file and copy them in here. So we've got them for future reference. And now if we go to the link that's also been spat out here, what we can do is we can grant Azure access to the Synology, so that we can actually access the data that's stored on the Microsoft cloud. So once we've been given the grant, or we've been given the consent to access all that data, we can now move into the DSM to set up the backup task itself. So yeah, here we are on the DSM, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Active Backup for 365, and we're going to create a backup task. So I'm just going to put in the email address that we use to sign into Microsoft account with. And then we're going to take the tenant ID and the application ID that we've just saved from earlier. And we're going to paste them in here. And then we'll upload the certificate file that was given to us earlier by PowerShell, and we'll put in the password for that certificate that we defined earlier as well. So what the DSM will now do is it will connect to the Microsoft cloud and allow us to actually create the backup task itself. So it's just going to connect to us, and now it's connected, we can create our backup task. So we'll give it a nice simple name. We'll just call it account backup, I think. That's nice and simple, and we'll back it up to our Active Backup for Microsoft 365 soft folder. Sorry. Now, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to enable the 365 portal. Now, this will be useful in a little bit, so I'll speak about that in a bit. But we're just going to make sure we're backing up all the bits that we want to back up. So, yep, we do want to back up all of these folders and accounts. And of course, here we can set up a backup policy. So, yeah, we'll do it daily. And yeah, 9:30 sounds good. No one's going to be in the office then, so I'll be good and free to do it then. And of course, we'll preserve all backups. And once we're happy with that, we'll click apply. And yes, we do want to run a backup now. So what this is going to do now is it's going to go and do our initial backup. Now this will take obviously a little while because we've got 600 gigabytes of data to back up. And yeah, this is going to save and keep our backup going. So obviously that's taken a little while to complete. So what I'm showing here is obviously the backup once it's finished. Now we can see here that we've got 49 accounts being backed up on Drive. We've got 98 mailboxes being backed up, and we've got 135 SharePoint sites all being backed up as well. Now on the right, you can also see a calendar breakdown of the backups that we've done. And this means that yeah, we can see exactly when our backups are being taken and obviously the status of them as well. So we've got our backup solution set up. Now we need to actually look at how we can use it to do any recovery. So we can, with the backup, with the Microsoft 365 backup, we can do a bulk or a granular restoration, and of course we can export it to locally to our computer, or we can do a self-service restoration for users through the Active Backup for 365 portal. So yes, here we are on the Office 365, and I've got these files here. So this was taken of me at an event a couple of weeks ago, and that was a bit embarrassing, that one. And of course I want to make sure I keep these, so I'm just going to move them to a different file. Oh, it's a bit early in the morning, so I've accidentally deleted them instead. Now of course we can obviously go through to the recycle bin, and we can put them back, we can restore them from here. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to showcase how we can use the Office 365 portal to actually restore our photos that way. So opening the portal, we're going to change the role to our account, and here we can see all the folders from our account. So there's James's photos, and at the bottom we can see our backups that have been done. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our backup, open up our folder. We can see that we've got our files there that we want to save. Now of course we can select them individually and export them to our local computer, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select all of them, click restore to put it back into our Microsoft Office account. Now what we're actually doing here is we're not actually going to restore into the original location. What we're going to do is restore into a folder called restore and then the timestamp. Now we've done this to allow you to find your restorations easier. Obviously when you've got hundreds of thousands of emails and other files, it's a lot easier to find them when you've actually got a proper timestamp on the folder. So opening up that folder, we can see that we've got our photos here, and of course opening the photo, yep, that is the embarrassing one, and there's some good ones as well. Now obviously I'm just going to put these back into our folder, so I'll click on OneDrive and go down to James's photos, and yep, move here. So this is now going to move them back into my original folder as well. Ah, they're not quite there. Let's just give it a quick refresh. Ah, yeah, there we go. So yeah, they're now there in our folder back where we had them originally. So yeah, we've got our Microsoft Office 365 cloud being backed up to our on-premises Synology solution. Now, to make sure that we follow our 3-2-1 of data backup, so 3 copies of your data across 2 different mediums in at least one physical location. Well, we've got 2 copies, we've got 2 media clouds on-prem, and we've got at least 1 location, but we need to have that 3rd copy. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a secondary backup, and this is how we can back up first Synology to a second Synology to make sure we have that 3-2-1 backup solution. Now, in this case, we're actually going to use snapshot replication. So this allows us to protect the data on our Synology NAS, and we can take a backup every 5 minutes. Obviously, that's probably a bit overkill for what we're doing with a backup every day, but if you need that feature, that's there as well. And then, of course, we've also going to be able to customize that retention policy, so we can do it immediately after our backup has been taken, and also store it for as long as we need as well. So here I am on the NAS that we've got our Active Backup for 365 running on. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up snapshot replication, and we're going to create a replication task. So clicking create on the replication tab, we can then walk through our wizard, and we can now sign in to our remote NAS. So I'm just going to put the IP address in here, and we're just going to sign in as well. Now, once we're happy with that, we'll click next, and it will sign into our second NAS for us. And of course, once we've signed in, we can now set up the volumes and the folders that we want to be snapshotted over to the second unit. So of course, we're backing up our 365 backup. So we'll select that folder here. Now we can obviously do it over a USB copy, or we can do it over the network. So what we're doing here, we're going to do it over the network, because once it's done, we don't have to worry about it. And we of course can set up the retention policy and the backup schedule. And once we're all happy with that, yep, we're good to go. So actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the use the GMT timestamp, just to make sure it's easier when we're finding our backups in future. So once we're happy with all of our settings, we'll click apply, and it's as simple as that. So what this is now going to do is it's now going to finish creating our backup task and start our backup onto the second Synology as well. So that's the backup task created. So we'll click OK. And in the background, we can see that our backup task has already started, and it's already 40% of the way through. And moving on to our second Synology, we can then go into replication, and we can see that we can track the backup task from this side as well. And yeah, it's as simple as that. So now we have our Office 365 backing up to our on-premises Synology NAS, and our on-premises Synology NAS backing up to our secondary NAS, which could be off-site in another data center, or as in the case here, it's in our second office over in Germany. Now, the next kind of thing we need to think about is obviously, should our initial on-premises backup go down, what we need to do is we need to have our failover onto our second Synology, and to make sure we keep our backups going and allow us to keep that retention of our data as best as possible. So if, for instance, our on-premises NAS were to go down, what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over onto our secondary NAS and then continue our backups to our secondary NAS until we can get our primary NAS back up. So again, here we are on the DSM on our initial primary backup NAS. And what we're going to do under the recovery tab is we can do if we open up the action, we can either test a failover, or we can do a proper failover or a switchover. Now here, because the NAS hasn't failed, we're just going to do a switchover and making sure we've got the right locations of each NAS. And yep, so now we've selected switchover, we've activated it. It's now going to switch over onto our second NAS. so that now our second NAS is now our primary NAS and our first NAS is our secondary NAS. Now this will take a little while as it is a switch over rather than a failover, but yes, it is now fully switching over to have that backup task running on the second NAS. And once we've seen that it's finished, we can then move over onto the second NAS. So now that it's finished, we can now move on to the second NAS and check it from there. So on the second NAS, we can see that, yep, we've got our replication task and it's all successful. But of course, we need to make sure that we're still backing up the Office 365 account. So we can open up Active Backup for Office 365 from here. And what we can do is we can relink an existing backup task, click next, and we'll just make sure we've got the right task that we want. So it's account backup and click apply. Once we're happy, yep, I think we are. So yep, now we've clicked apply. What it's going to do is it's going to successfully relink the task and keep our backups going as we set up before. So again, on the overview, we can see all of our accounts being backed up, and yeah, they're all there and ready to go. So yeah, it's as simple as that to introduce and utilize a cloud backup solution. Now, we've gone over a couple of bits and pieces today, so just to make sure that it's all still fresh in your mind, we'll just have a quick recap. So we went over why you need that cloud backup solution. So whether it's for retention regulations or for ransomware attacks, or just straight up because you have that slightly clumsy moment and you need that retention, or the accidental deletion prevention. We've then also taken a look at what Synology offers, so the full Synology Active Backup suite. And in this case, we've taken a further in-depth look into Active Backup for Office 365. And then finally, we also went and had a look at how we can spec out, how we can create and then also utilize that Synology backup solution as well. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching.